Hey, friend, welcome to She Said podcast. I'm your host, Laura Cox Kaplan. I am practically giddy about today's guest. This is a special Women's History Month conversation that I'm having, and I am joined by the incomparable, the absolutely fabulous Sheryl Sandberg. This is 13 years after the publication of her book, Lean In, which really changed the conversation about women in the workforce. Now, a lot has happened over that 13-year period, both in the workforce as well as with Sheryl Sandberg. And we talk about all of those things in this conversation. This is a conversation about leaning in, of course. It's about resilience. It's about giving back. It's about investing generously in other people. It's about the power of female friendships. And it's about the state of the workforce today. We talk about so many aspects of what's happening in the world today. I think you're going to love this conversation. It is a very personal one for me, as I share in the conversation. When I read Lean In and Sheryl asked me to share my own story, it caused me to question the status quo for myself. And it ultimately resulted in a pretty major career pivot that has led me to the work that I'm doing now. And honestly, I could not be more grateful. So I am really thrilled to share this special conversation with you. I hope you love it as much as I loved recording it. This is episode 360 of She Said podcast, a special conversation for Women's History Month with my dear friend, Sheryl Sandberg. Enjoy. Sheryl, my friend, welcome to She Said.
This was a hard invite for me to get. I want to start right there. So Laura and I are close friends, very close friends. We spent a lot of time together. And I have invited myself on this podcast, how many times? 4 times for like a year.
She's making it up, you guys. She's making it up.
Not making it up. I was like, I watch your podcast. It's pretty good. Like, I might be a guest or I could come on. And I finally, I think 2 weeks ago, I was like, what about me? So here I am as a guest on one of my favorite podcasts with one of my favorite people in the whole world, formidable Laura Cox Kaplan. I'm really happy to be here with you today.
You are the best. You are just the best. I was saving you for this moment. We are celebrating Women's History Month. I could think of no one better to join me for this year, Women's History Month. We are 13 years after Lean In. And one of the things that I'm not sure you even know is the impact that the book and that your friendship had on me at a very pivotal moment. Ultimately, you asking me to write my story as part of the launch of the book ended in my changing career paths. Both that, the death of Dave, which we'll talk about in this conversation, those things together really caused me to take a good hard look at what I was doing and where I was spending my time. So I owe you a lot. Your friendship, your generosity, all those things, you changed my life. I know that is true for so many people. So thank you for being here.
Right back at you. Laura so generously volunteers her time to serve on the Lean In board. And I was just saying to her before we were on camera, but I'm happy to say it on camera, that every time I need someone to say the right thing in the board meeting, I'm like, Laura, why don't you talk now? And Laura, you've been such a strong voice for women. I remember you writing your story and how much that meant to me and how strong your messages were. And it just really matters that we all know that we can lean in together, lean in our own ways. We've been doing it for a long time, and we want lots of other women to do it too.
Amen. Amen to that. Okay, so in that vein, because we are 13 years out from Lean In, I have a copy of the original book behind me. I actually have the original manuscript laying around here somewhere, which is really fun too, that I made notes on. But looking back, Sheryl, I'd love for you to kind of take us back. Like, if you could give that woman who wrote that book 13 years ago some advice based on your life over the 13 years, what would you tell her at this point? I mean, we're going to start with a hard question. That's a really tough one to jump in
on. I would tell her that writing that book was going to be harder and the stuff that came after than she thought. I would tell her to do it anyway. I would tell her to lean the hell in and write that book. Maybe do some things differently in it. But, look, I came into the workforce. You and I are basically the same age. I graduated from college in 1991. So I have been now in the workforce for decades. And when I looked above me, it was just so many men. I've still to this day never worked for a woman. And when I looked to the side of me, though, there were these strong, amazing women. And I thought we were going to take our share of the leadership roles. Women got 50% of the college degrees in this country in 1981, a full 10 years before I graduated and you graduated. And then it just didn't happen. It didn't happen, and it's still not happening. And so I stepped out and spoke out as a feminist, spoke out about the issues women were having in the workplace with an aim to tell everyone that we can and should fix it. And I think that message is even more important today. You know, writing that book was a joy in many ways, was hard in many ways. The stuff that's happened in the last 13 years has been all of that.
Yeah.
But I think we still have that core message to women, right? The world would be a better place with you leading. It's not really that fair. We need to overcome some obstacles that men don't have to overcome,
Hmm.
but we can, we will, we do.
Yeah.
And that when we do that, we make the world better, not just for the women behind us, but for the men.
Yeah. One of the things that I remember that resonated so deeply with me was that we had ownership, that you put you put women in the driver's seat of this. You didn't ignore the barriers that exist for a lot of people. But you put women in the driver's seat to say, in some respects, these are things that we are saying to ourselves. And that message really resonated very deeply with me. A lot of times it's the voice that's up here that's telling us you can't do that, or that you can't sit at the table, or that you're not worthy of this opportunity or that opportunity. And as I was sort of, thinking about this conversation today and thinking about what were those aspects that really resonated with me, that was it. It spoke to me very deeply. And I know people had different points of view and, we could say it differently and all that. But for me, that's why it really resonated.
I mean, if I go back to your Lean In story that you wrote, the Lean In stories, everyone, were stories we had on the website when we launched, because by the time we launched, I realized the book had only my story, and that was a mistake. Yours talked about fear. Don't let fear hold you back. And what happens, in my view, it's the internalization of what I believe the very gendered messages women and girls get. So a woman who's applying to med school, a woman who is going to take the bar, a woman who is applying for promotion, people will say to her in her 20s, don't you want kids one day? Do you want to do that? I have asked thousands of men, has anyone ever said to you, don't you want kids one day? Do you want to do it? Like, never, you know? Like, there's a reason why we have to change our internal voice. It is what we've been told over and over. You have a daughter. I have 3 daughters. You have a son. I have 2 sons. Our little girls are called bossy. Little boys aren't called bossy because leadership is expected. And so that happens all the way through. And pretty soon we do have fear holding ourselves back. We do have that internal voice. Ariana Huffington, my dear friend and big sister, she calls it our obnoxious roommate. It's the words in her head. And actually, in
Love
option
that.
B, we have one of my, I mean, I don't know, favorite, but one of the most poignant stories ever, which is a true story, which is there was a woman whose husband left her. She got divorced, low self-esteem coming out of it. She was set up on a blind date. She got all dressed up. She got her hair done. She went to the blind date. The guy walked out in 10 minutes. And then her friend said to her, of course he did. You're not funny and have big thighs. Wait, but like, of course a friend didn't say that to her. No friend would ever say that to you. Who said that to her?
She
She
said it to
said that
herself.
to herself.
Oh, of course.
Think about all the things we say to ourselves we would
Right.
never say to a friend.
You're so
And
right.
and why would we treat a friend better than we would treat ourselves? And so going back to your Lean In story, fear that holds us back, the messages we internalize, and then we have a world where women have 11% of the top jobs. And countries go to war.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
stand by what I've said before, which is I do not believe 2 countries run by women would go to war. Full
Mm.
stop. Don't believe it.
I'm not sure about that, but your point is well taken. Your point is well taken. Okay, you've mentioned Ariana Huffington. You mentioned our friendship. You have just legions of these incredible women that you surround yourself with, that you give to generously, heart, spirit, mind, everything. This concept of female friendship really is the foundation of what you created at Lean In. So you wrote the book, but you didn't just write the book. You launched a foundation, which you and I were just talking about a moment ago. But maybe talk about this concept of the circles and female friendships and sort of where that comes from and why that's so important to you.
Well, we know that mentorship and sponsorship really, really matters in the workplace. And we know that men get more of it. Why? There are more senior men. Why? People tend to mentor and sponsor people they feel more comfortable with and people who have similar interests. Like you play golf on the weekend. That's, I don't know, 6 hours of chat,
Right.
right? You feel more comfortable because no one's going to accuse you of sexual harassment. When you travel with a man, you travel with a man. That's all that time he gets that a woman doesn't get. And so I really believe we need to get men to sponsor and mentor more women. But as women, we can't sit around waiting to get sponsored and mentored. We have to do something to get ourselves there as we put that pressure on the senior leaders. And the data is really clear that peer mentorship, female friendship, but peer mentorship can be really effective. I've experienced that in my own life. I was going to go to Google. I had job offers on Wall Street. My mentors, the people above me, were like, "What's Google? Go to Wall Street." I was like, no. And then when I was going to go to Facebook, I had other job offers more in traditional media. My mentors were like, they're going to let you run a media company? Go do that. And my peers were like, oh my God, I use Facebook every day. And so peers can be so effective. And that's what we're finding. So we launched Lean In Circles, part of the foundation 13 years ago. Our goal was 1,000. Today, 155,000 have been started in almost every country in the world. And when we ask people who are in them, they show us they work. 36% of Circle members have taken on a new challenge and credit their Circle. Our Circle members are getting promoted at higher rates than the general population, getting raises through practicing with their Circle. And so we are giving women a structure and a place to be unapologetically ambitious. The first time you practice asking for a raise should not be across the table from your boss.
Exactly. Oh,
You need
yes.
a place to practice that. And that's what Lean In Circles give you.
Love that. I absolutely love that. So, Me Too, you mentioned mentorship and sponsorship and the incredible value that provides. I know it was incredibly valuable to you at different points in your career. It has been to me as well. But Me Too had a chilling effect for an awful lot of men who now are very concerned about the optics of being, in a room together with a young woman. Talk about advice that you are giving and sort of how you recommend young women to handle this. Because I get this question a lot. You probably do too. It's something to be very mindful of, but how do you recommend that they handle that?
I mean, it's such an important question. And I want to be super clear. The Me Too movement was really important because no women should be harassed at work.
Agreed.
None, zero. But what I say is it's not good enough to not harass us. You need to not ignore us either. And so Lean In has surveyed people, and we find that more than 50% of managers in the U.S. are afraid to have a one-on-one meeting or interaction or travel or go to dinner with a female colleague, especially a younger one. And then I say, have you ever promoted someone you've never spoken to one-on-one? Of course not. And so, ready? Travel? That's a public airport, not your hotel room. Restaurant? That's not your flat. I mean, dinner, that's not your flat. That's a restaurant. You can and should meeting, keep the door open if you feel you need to, which you shouldn't have to. But of course, you need to meet one-on-one with women. And so we need to be really clear that you can't just ignore us because we're women and give more of that investment. Those informal opportunities really matter. There's a partner at Goldman Sachs who was in Lean In. He had 3 daughters. He recognized this long before the Me Too movement, and he realized that he was doing this. And what he said was he was going to make access equal. So he said, I don't do dinners. That's it. I don't do dinners with anyone. Great. I don't care how you get there. Make it even. And as a women in the organizations, we need to make sure that we have a voice saying that we deserve those same opportunities. And if you want a place to practice that, your lean in circle. Because again, the first time you say, hey, I want to make sure access is equal in my company should probably not be to the vice president of your department. You got to
Exactly.
practice that messaging to get it right.
I remember an occasion where, I had great mentors. I also, like you, have never worked for a woman. So it's so interesting that we are, we're the same generation. We grew up in the workforce at the same time. But I remember that one of my bosses he was big on dinners, and it was one-on-one dinners. We would go to a restaurant. He would, I was based in Washington. He was in New York. He would come to Washington for meetings the next day. We would have dinner. And I was always worried, not about him and not about something happening, but the optics of sitting there with him. And I remember at the time, I would always have, at the time, my BlackBerry. We didn't have iPhones. I would have my BlackBerry and my notebook out so it would look professional. I would be, jotting down notes just so the optics were, this is a business meeting, right? Not drinking wine, not like sending the message, right? Because you don't want that to be the impression that's left. But I remember that, and this was way before Me Too and all of these things, but, the optics of these situations can matter too. So,
And that's just another way there are biases against women in the workplace. We know that to be true. We need to know what they are and overcome them. So I love your idea of putting a notebook out there. What I want to say to both men and women in that situation is, okay, if you're uncomfortable, find a way to make it work. But the way to make it work is not to only have dinner with men, because that is a way to only promote men. That's what will happen. And so good for you for going to those dinners, Laura Cox Kaplan, and good for you for taking out that notebook.
of course. So, Sheryl, as you think about your life and leaning in, you think about this concept of ambition, you think about power, you think about the different seasons of your life so far. How has the terms of ambition and power, how have they evolved for you as you have evolved in your life and career?
So I do thing, I just did it last week at a financial big company we were launching Lean In Circles for. And I say, raise your hand if you want to be CEO. Like, raise your hand to the audience. And the same thing happens every time, which is a lot more men than women raise their hand. And I say, why didn't you raise your hand? And one of the options I offer is, it's like distasteful to raise your hand and say, I want to be CEO. And of course, more women raise their hand to that than men. And the reason is that power and ambition is applauded in men and not applauded in women. And it's interesting because this was the thing I learned that got me down the path of giving the TED Talk and writing Lean In. I sat next to a woman named Deb Gruenfeld. She is a professor at the Stanford Business School at a dinner at my friend Sharon Mayer's house. They both serve on the Lean In Advisory Board now. And she was a professor. She studies this, and she said, as men get more powerful, they are better liked. As women get more powerful, they are less liked. And it was like a lightning bolt hit me. It explained so much. There's a reason why men will proudly raise their hand and say, I want to be CEO, and women won't. It's not that there's something wrong with us. It's that there's something wrong in the world, which we are correctly understanding that it is distasteful. And so as I started to understand that, I do think that is one of the reasons women hold themselves back or can't be as assertive about their ambition or can't talk about their own ambition. The problem is, and I saw this in my own life, when I was at Google managing people, at Facebook, now Meta, so many people would be in my office asking for the next promotion. More men than women. And so who do you think gets the next promotion if you're not paying attention to that? And so where I've come to with the life experience I have is we need to make it okay for women to be ambitious. We need to make it okay for women to want to be CEO. The other reason I offer, like, why don't you want to be CEO? People will say, many more women than men, of course, that they want to be a good wife. They want to be a good mother, right? And then I say, have you ever had a meeting with your CEO? And the person says yes. It's usually a he, right? Because 89% of them are he. And I say, whose calendar was that set on? Yours or, in this case, his? And the light bulb goes off. They're like, oh my God, it's on his calendar. And I think as I got more senior, I had more power, more control. When I was at Meta, then Facebook, I said publicly in an interview, I go home at 5:30. I mean, I couldn't have gotten more headlines if I had murdered someone with an axe. I mean, it was everywhere.
Right.
The Yahoo legal department sent me flowers. Thank you. We're all going home at 5:30. Do you think I could have done that my first year at Google? Of course not.
Right.
I got more seniority and more control over my life. Not perfect, and I'm not saying I didn't miss some stuff and work hard, but I think women miss that, and men implicitly know that. I'm going to get more senior. I'll be better liked. I'll have more control. All of this will work out. And with women, we're pushing against all the negative messages.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think about this idea of ambition for yourself differently? Because you have tremendous influence, right? You have had this amazing career. You are continuing to invest in women and girls in all sorts of interesting ways based on what's happening in the world. You have created this amazing documentary after October 7th, Screams of Silence, which I want to talk about. You are investing in ending child marriage so that little girls all around the world can get an education and achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve. But as you think about ambition for Sheryl Sandberg today in 2026, is it still ambition or is it a different word? What is it that, how do you define it at this point? Or is it influence? Like how do you think about it for yourself? Does that make sense?
It's funny, no one's asked me this in a very long time, but I'm gonna walk the walk. It's ambition.
Okay.
I am ambitious. I am ambitious for my foundation. You served on our selection committee for our new CEO. We are in a new phase, our next phase of what we're doing, and you've been part of it. We are setting very ambitious targets for bringing women into our community and empowering them to fill in the blank, be more ambitious, get a raise, get a promotion, get more balance over their lives, more time for their kids, whatever their goals are. But yeah, I'm ambitious, not just for myself, but for my foundation and my team that I so deeply believe in and the work we do. I just joined the board of an AI company, Nscale, run by this incredible founder, Josh Payne. And yeah, I'm ambitious to be a good board member and help him succeed and help the company succeed. And I guess my deepest ambition is I want the next generation to be ambitious. When I'm with your daughter and I'm with my own, when I look at them and say, what do you want to do? I want them to choose what they want to do without the negative messages that society has already thrown their way.
Love that. I absolutely love that. Okay. There are so many topics we could talk about. We could literally do an entire month of podcast episode. We just might, given what you said at the beginning. Let's talk a little bit about AI because you did just mention that. I know that's a real area of focus for you and for Lean In particular because you're worried about women maybe falling through the cracks there or not being as focused on learning to use these AI tools as what their male counterparts are. So talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the data and what Lean In is doing to try to close this gap.
We are at the forefront beginning of a massive technological revolution, massive. It's going to change everything about how we work, how we live. I think it's going to have enormous positive impacts. I think people are going to be able to learn in a personalized way. I think a child is already happening at a rural village in the developing world is going to be able to diagnose a cancer that never would have been diagnosed at the same rates as you could at the Mayo Clinic. There's a lot of benefit here, but there's going to be a lot of disruption for jobs. I saw Sam Altman say this on a stage recently. He said, the people who are going to lose jobs to AI are the people who don't know how to use AI. And I absolutely believe that. And what are we finding already? Men are using AI at higher rates. We actually just fielded a survey of this. We're going to release it in a week and a half on even more findings we have on how women are not being encouraged to use it and aren't using it as much. And it really matters. If you are a woman, a girl, anyone watching this, as soon as this podcast is over, get to the end, but go do something in AI. Try it. This is an incredibly powerful technology, but you will only be able to do it if you use it We always encourage boys more than girls to use technology. It happens every single time. We can't let it happen this time. And
And
it is happening.
and when you talk about using AI, you're talking about like using it for all sorts of things. You're not necessarily talking about understanding all the back end elements of AI, right? You're not talking about that. You're talking about just learning how to use it, right?
Absolutely. You do not have to be technical. And that is, I'm so glad you asked that question, Laura, because that's what holds women back. I'm not technical. Well, you don't have to be technical. And a lot of these services are there for free. What are you doing today that could be more efficient or more effectively done using AI? Try it. You just have to be a consumer using the products, and you will get more effective and efficient at work for sure.
You know, when I think about your story and I think about the tremendous tragedy that you had when Dave passed away, and that had it had a huge impact on everybody's life who knows you. We hurt for you, we hurt for your children, and we hurt for ourselves. Selfishly, frankly, he was a great guy, and it was scary because we saw somebody in their prime who passed away really suddenly, and it was so tragic and so horrible. You took that and you doubled down and you wrote a book about the experience and coming out on the other side that's all about resilience and the power. And you learned so much. And you took this as a moment to teach other people. And I still am so inspired by what you did and the impact that that has had on so, so many lives. Maybe talk a little bit about what you learned, because there's a three-part kind of methodology, if you will, that you developed, I think, with Adam Grant, who co-wrote the book with you. But maybe talk a little bit about what you learned. You can talk as much about the story as you want to, but really about what you learned and why you thought it was so important to share that with other people.
Well, thanks, Laura. And I will start by saying thank you and Joel for your friendship, which, among others, was so important getting me through this. Really, you guys really showed up, and we became much closer, actually, which is one of the things. I was just talking yesterday to a man who I didn't know, was introduced by a friend who just lost his wife. And what I said to him is what I'll say is that the thing we need to know is that on the other side of tragedy, on the other side of trauma, there can be real growth and real learning and real joy. And if you ask audiences or anyone listening, ready, what's PTSD? Everyone knows what PTSD is. But if you ask people, what is post-traumatic growth? No one's ever heard of it. But Adam Grant taught me this, and that's why we co-wrote this book together, which is that post-traumatic growth means you go through trauma and something gets not as good, but better in your life. And I want to be super clear. I would not put myself through what I went through. If I could do it again, I would not do it. That is why the book is called Option B. But when you go through that trauma, you do live in a different way, and there are things that are more positive. So Laura's very close with, we all were very close with my husband, Tom. We got married 3.5 years ago. We've been together for 6 years. And we go to sleep, and this is personal, but like he kind of wraps around me, and I feel his breath on my neck. And to this day, every single night, I am grateful. I say, thank you. Now, his joke is he managed to find the wife with the ultimate low bar. He's like, all I have to do is breathe. And she's thrilled.
Love Tom. We love Tom.
We love Tom, but I was very happily married before, and Dave and I had a wonderful marriage. But was I grateful he was breathing? No. I didn't know. My son, about a year after his dad died, so he was 10 when his dad died, he was 11. So I don't remember what grade, but like 7th grade. I think it was 6th, so it would have been in 6th grade. His 6th grade basketball team lost the championships. And all the boys were crying except for my son. And I looked at him and I said, are you okay? He looked at me, he said, Mom, they don't know. And I knew exactly what he meant. What he meant is the other 6th grade boys didn't understand that like losing the basketball championship wasn't something to cry over. And of course they should cry. But think about that lesson. I wake up every day and I'm like grateful Tom's alive, let alone the wonderful husband he is. My son, my daughter, they have strength inside them. My daughter wrote an essay for her senior high school class last year, which is the blessings of losing my dad.
Wow.
And it was the ways in which she is a different, stronger person. Again, she would never choose to lose her dad. I would have never chosen to lose the father of my children and my husband. But my life is deeper for it. And that's what I wanted people to know. I had too many people say to me, "You'll never recover." No, of
Seriously?
course. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The books out there were terrible. Someone sent me a book called Moving to the Middle of the Bed. I'm like, really?
Oh,
Like, you get that book, you've just lost your husband, you just bawl. There's message after message. I wish I could tell you it got better. It never does. Not true. It does, it can, it will. And we don't get to choose what life throws our way. I didn't get to choose losing Dave, I try to live and honor him, honor his memory. I run a scholarship program in his name. Or there are pictures of him all over my life. To this day, big pictures of him everywhere. Tom is very supportive. We're always honoring Dave. And I live with the lessons and the depth, the closer friendships I have, the gratitude I have that I didn't have before. I will never make another joke about growing old, ever. Because it turns out I now know, I used to make those jokes, oh my God, I'm growing old. There's two paths. You grow old or you don't. That's the choice. And so if you have the honor and privilege, I turned 56 with joy. I turned 50, I was like, I made it. And before this, I would have been like, oh my God, I'm 50.
I love that. I love that. You talk about 3 Ps in the book as being kind of anchors as you think about resilience. Can you talk a little bit about those three elements?
Yeah, the data shows that there's 3 cognitive traps that keep us from recovering from trauma or tragedy, the 3 Ps. Personalization, blaming yourself. I blamed myself. And even in cases where it may be partially or entirely your fault that something happened, blaming yourself is never going to be the answer. But what could I have done to keep Dave from having that heart arrhythmia? Should I have known? I mean, all the ways. Don't do that. Pervasiveness. When I lost Dave, I thought I was going to also lose my job. I said to Mark, Zuckerberg, I was working for at the time, don't give up on me. And then when I went back to work, I was barely functioning. I fell asleep in a meeting. I thought someone who worked at Google had worked at Microsoft, which sounds like a small mistake, but in this little tech world, that's like a big difference. And Mark was so kind. Mark said, I'd rather have 50% of you than whole of anyone else. And he gave me that time, to recover. But I thought I would not be able to do other things. And that's not true. And the third is permanence. Speaking to the gentleman I was speaking to the other day, it's been a few months for him. I said to him, I bet you your worst day today is not as bad as the day after you buried her. And he was like, you're right. Even though it had only been 2 months, that doesn't mean he's not having bad days. That doesn't mean I still don't have tough moments with Dave, but it does get better. We are incredibly resilient.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Okay. We have lots of things that we can talk about. I want you to talk a little bit about, you helped bring 2 of the largest companies ever that occupy still 10% of the NASDAQ. You grew them exponentially during your time there. Culture was and still is a really important focus for you. And there's some interesting ways that you think about building culture. And I've heard you talk about two different things that I'd love for you to talk about today. One is about the after action and an experience that you had with the leadership team taking them to Quantico. And that's a funny story because when Joel Kaplan came back from that leadership, he looked like he had been hit by a bus. But that's a story for another day, perhaps. Maybe tell about how that experience shaped how you were thinking about culture and how you were leading at Meta, then Facebook at the time.
So Mark was 23 when I went to work for him. I was older. I was 15 years older, but we had never done this before. And so every year we took our management team to visit a company or an organization we could learn from. And I had the honor of being able to, because I knew the commandant of the Marine Corps, because he had read Lean In and flew across the country to say, I want to meet you and talk about how we can help women
It's
succeed in the
amazing.
Marines. Kudos to him, right? I asked him if I could bring the Facebook team to Quantico, Marines leadership training, and we went. And your husband, who is an ex-Marine, did better on the obstacle course than anyone. It turns out I can't do anything. I can't even like open a toothpaste cap with someone screaming at me, like, ah. But I learned two things. I mean, I learned a lot there, but I learned two things that really stuck. One is that everyone can take full responsibility and accountability. Ready? People don't realize that when they don't own it, they're not taking back power, they're giving up power. So there was one time I was driving to work. I drove from my house to Facebook every day for 14 years, right? And it took 20 minutes. But one day there was like a big crane thing and it took 40 and I was late. Now, was I late because there was unforeseen traffic, or was I late because I didn't leave early enough in case there was unforeseen traffic? Choose the latter and you've now taken back control. When you're doing a work project and it doesn't happen, or I tell this to my kids, a school project, and like your partner doesn't do their share, did your project not get completed because your partner didn't do the share? Did they do his or her share? Or did your project not get completed because you didn't build the relationship with the person that would have motivated them to do their share? By taking full accountability, you're not blaming yourself, you're being powerful.
Mm.
And you're setting yourself up to get it right the next time. The second thing I learned from Quantico was debrief. Debrief. When something goes wrong, you all get together in front of everyone and talk about what we could all done differently. And you do that when things go well. If something goes particularly well, what did we do that made it go well? And in both of those situations, people have a hard time being very direct, right? In the first, you're like, I did this wrong. So with my foundation, the teams I ran at Meta, the teams I ran at Google, I really do try to lead with, here's what I do wrong. If I mess up today, I'm going to say too much, not too little every time. And I know that. So I will say, I think I talked too much in that meeting. Or I think I didn't let you finish. I cut you off. I should have let you finish your sentence. But the second is even harder for women sometimes. Now we're going to debrief what went well. I had a great idea that I brought to the table.
No woman does that.
But we have to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And
It's
if you
really
set a
hard.
norm of teams doing that, what you figure out is the patterns of why things went wrong or the patterns of why things go well. Great place to practice this, back to your lean in circle. But it really, really matters. And it was a lesson I tried to take from Quantico and I've taken with me ever since.
Yeah.
I try to do it with my kids. It doesn't work as well.
Yeah.
We were super late. Why? No one wants to talk about how, anyway.
I love that. And I especially love the idea of the celebrating of what went right, of stopping and saying, not just focusing on the what we did wrong or what we could have done better, which is great. It's really important to do that after action planning, but also to talk about what went right. And whether that's in a meeting, whether that's just every day of your life. And I love that you talk about that because I think it's such an important reminder that when we celebrate those little things, like that too helps build resilience so that when you have a bump, whatever it is, hopefully it's not major, but any little bump, like that's building that muscle memory so that you can appreciate, well, yeah, it was pretty crappy, but here, this good thing happened as a result.
Yeah. And look, one of the most important things I've ever learned is we are only capable of having one thought at once.
Mm.
We think we multitask. We don't. We switch very quickly. So that means that when you are the obnoxious roommate, and you've spoken about this over and over again on your podcast, fear, internal barriers, speaking to yourself as a friend. I mean, you've really had this message, which is actually one of the reasons I did invite myself many times to be here, is that you can only think one thing at once. So of course, think about what you did wrong so you can learn. But you owe it to yourself to spend as much time thinking about what went right as what went wrong, maybe more time, because probably more is going right. And give yourself that reinforcement, that voice. Wow, I did something really well today. In fact, after Dave died, Adam Grant told me I should do journaling, not of gratitude, but of what I did well, because I thought I couldn't do anything well. And so
Mm.
I have like 9 months of a journal where every single day I had to write down 3 things I did well. And some of them were really small, like made tea, took a bath without crying, or took a bath with crying, but let myself cry. I would say to everyone, if you want to do something to build your confidence, journal what you did well
Yeah.
today.
I love that. I absolutely love that. That's so beautiful. Okay, there's another piece that I really love when you talk about culture, and I've heard you talk about this in the past, and it's a 2 by 2 matrix that really struck me. And I heard you say this recently, and I don't think I'd heard you talk about it before, which is why I wanted you to talk about it today. Describe that for me and sort of how it works in the corporate setting, but also potentially how it works in a personal setting, perhaps.
With givers and takers.
Yes, the
Yeah.
givers and takers matrix.
This is an Adam Grant lesson. So you
I
take a
love this.
piece of paper, you two asks 4 by 4, givers and takers, people who are giving, care about others, make other people better. People who are takers care about themselves. And then you can phrase it different way, but good UI, bad UI, or agreeable, disagreeable. Agreeable, nice affect, nice to people, disagreeable, rougher around the edges. The top corner, which is agreeable givers, everyone loves. They love them personally. They love them in companies, and they should. Check. The bottom, disagreeable takers. No one wants them around. You shouldn't want them as your friends. You shouldn't want to work with them, X. But where people get confused are those other 2 quadrants, right? Well, takers. The world is filled with these. People who seem nice, say the right thing, but really they're not helping others. And it's too easy to look at the way someone says it versus what they're saying. And then the other, which really matters, is disagreeable givers. Facebook was filled with these people, filled with these people. Someone walk up to you and be like, your product sucks. Have you looked at the data? No one used it. That button was a terrible idea, blah, 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 blah. I stayed up all night. Here, try this. Terrible UI. Terrible. But that person's a giver. That person took their time to make your product better. And
And
I
gave
think
feedback too.
organizations need to tolerate that. Now, it would be nice to help them soften it, but more importantly, look at the real intent of what someone is doing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, you are involved in so many other things. We mentioned briefly child marriage. We mentioned Screams Before Silence. Maybe talk a little bit about how you're making decisions about where you're investing your time. We already talked about Lean In, but your work goes well beyond that. And so talk about how you're deciding where you're investing time and energy and resources.
Just trying to find ways to contribute on things that matter. I thought the silence after the sexual violence of October 7th needed a lot of attention.
Such a
And
powerful film. If folks have not, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah,
such a powerful film. And if folks have not seen that, I hope you will, because it is so incredibly well done. You really did a beautiful job with something that is just so gut wrenching, truly.
well, thank you. Look, so just so you know, I was about to say thank you. I didn't make the film, it was other people, but I realized that's exactly what I tell women not to do. So I'm just going to say thank you and move on.
It was a team effort. There were others
It's a
involved.
team effort. There were.
Yes.
There were. And I'm not denying that. I'm just saying we should not apologize when someone gives us a compliment. We should just take it. So thank you.
Amen.
But let's talk about child marriage. There are 12 million girls who will be married this year in this world under the age of 18. Many of them far, far, far younger ages. In Iran, a country that's much in the news, the legal age of marriage is nine. And there was a thing put out by the last Ayatollah, and they obviously weren't even adhering to the 9-year-old, which said that you're not allowed, and it's very upsetting to talk about, you're not allowed to have penetrative sex with your wife until she's 9. Before that, you are able to a whole list of stuff. When we think about having an impact on helping the lives of girls around the world and women, I'm not sure there's a more important issue than child marriage. The First Lady of Sierra Leone, I launched this project with my foundation, with your support, Laura, thank you, and others, with SIPA, the Institute of Public Policy, International Public Policy at Columbia. And we had an advisory board, and the First Lady of Sierra Leone was on that advisory board, Fatima, and she is unbelievable. And her story is profound. Her sisters were all married at 11 or 12. She was announced to be engaged at an age like that. She said the minute that announcement happened, she thought her life was over. Why would she study? She's about to be engaged. She could think of nothing but trying to avoid what she understood was about to happen to her. And then the war broke out, saved her. She wound up married to the now president of the country. And she's very clear. She says we need to stop calling this child marriage. We need to start calling it what it is, which is legalized rape. And, her words again, pedophilia. When we allow the state to bless a situation where a young girl is given as property to a man, she says, you wake up in the morning, what do? Whatever he wants. You cook, you clean, you serve, often for him and other wives. And you are available for sexual relationships with him. You're 10, you're 11, you're 12, you're 15, whenever he wants. And then it traps families and women and girls in a cycle of poverty. Think about what happens to a girl's body. Sorry, it's so hard to talk about this. If you give birth at 12, you're not ready to give birth at 12. You have higher child mortality, higher maternal mortality. Your daughter is less likely to get educated, more likely to be a child bride herself. And so we need to call this what it is. And we need to stop what is, the mass legalized rape of girls all over the world.
Are there opportunities for other people to get involved? Somebody who's listening to this, who's moved by what you just said, are there opportunities for them to get involved and help with this effort?
Yes. Please read our report, and then we're going to continue to follow up. It's on my Instagram. It's linked on the SEPA site at Columbia.
We could talk all day and then some about your incredible story and you're such an amazing person and I am so in awe of you. What have I
Right
not
back at
asked
you,
you?
Laura. Right back at you.
Thank you very much. That's very kind. What have I not asked you, or what do you find that people don't ask you that you wish they would when you have these conversations?
Well, you always ask the right questions, but I guess if I were to add one thing to anyone listening, what I would say is that this is a moment where a lot of things are up in the kind of disarray in our world. I think we are thinking through what is the right role for men and women. I think the rise of some of the manosphere influences are very detrimental, especially for younger women. We are at a moment where we're so politically disjointed. There is so much uncertainty about jobs, uncertainty about our future, uncertainty about peace. And here's what I want to say to anyone listening. These problems are not beyond your reach, because as you step up and have a louder voice and lead, she said, your voice, you make a difference. And sometimes I think when we get overwhelmed, we look at the whole thing. And I have a silly story from my childhood, but it means a lot to me, which is I was a very bad athlete and I went skiing for the very first time when I was 16. And I was with my mom and I looked down at the bottom and I just started crying. I said, I am never getting down that mountain. And my mom said, do 10 turns, 10 spaghetti, big turns. She said, just do 10 turns. And it turns out you do 10 turns, you stop. You do 10 turns, stop. Before you know it, you're at the bottom of the mountain. When it feels overwhelming, when the world is telling you you can't have it all while they're telling your brother or your husband he sure can. When it feels like there's not going to be jobs in the future. When it feels like you're not going to be able to do what you achieve. Yeah, you can. 10 turns. Just 10 turns. Grab some friends, whether it's in a lean-in circle or just on your own. Have that place, Laura, you've been this for me, where you can be ambitious for whatever it is you want to achieve, you want to do with your life, and know that you can make a difference, because you can. This will happen person by person, girl by girl, woman by woman, and boy by boy, man by man, as we work towards a world where anyone can do what they want to do.
Love that. Sheryl, thank you so much. I'm so grateful.
Laura, thank you for letting me on your podcast. Took a lot of persuading, but also for being such a dear friend. I know your viewers, and I'm one of them, get to see you and who you are behind this camera. But I guess I want everyone to know that in front of that camera, this woman, Laura, is the most wonderful friend, the deepest, most empathetic, but also most fun, someone who shows up for the big, the little, cries with you, laughs with you. And it's a blessing that you are doing, she said, with such regularity that people get to see you bring your voice and others out. So I'm honored to be one of your guests, and I'm more honored to be one of your friends. Thank you, Laura.